Hello and welcome back in another video in our continued journey of trying to master, not trying to, definitely mastering data interpretation, and that too at a almost at a foundational level in terms of getting comfortable with various formats, very basic stories around various data formats. For example, today we want to talk about value versus volume. Very simple concept, one and a half minute worth of concept, and maybe 15-20 minutes of practice, and you have the idea in your pocket. And then how to apply it in a pie chart situation. And overall, again, noticing definitely for the first 5-6 videos that why or how ratios and percentage clarity is so important. So this session is about value versus volume, understanding these terms. It's about a pie chart, and even more importantly, it's about how ratios and percentages skills play out. And if you have those foundations in place, you can go very fast here. I am going to go slightly faster than usual because the foundations are covered in ratios and percentages. So I will assume that either you have mastered them, or you're already comfortable with the idea, or after a minute or two of your personal effort, you will be able to catch up if your ratios and percentages are in place. So let's start with the very basic idea. What do I mean by value? What do I mean by volume? And what is the connection between them? So imagine you run a company and the number of items that it makes is 10. So this is your volume. What am I talking about? Let's say you're talking about making, how many cars do you make? So say the number of cars is 10. So this number, so this piece of data is often referred to as volume by sales or volume by manufacturing. How many packets or how many cars or how many houses are you making? This has no money component. This is talking about the number of items essentially. Very easy idea. And now imagine that each car you are selling at, let's say, 1 lakh rupees. So your overall revenue again should be very easy. Number of items into price per item will give you the total sum. Number of items into the price of item will give you the total sum. Write it down somewhere. Or in our case, volume into the price per unit. Right? In the beginning, it's better to capture all information. Volume into price per unit is equal to value. Value again in terms of sales, let's say, or the overall cost maybe. So volume by sales, how many units were sold? Value by sales, what was the money generated? So now imagine if you have 10 cars and you're selling each car for 1 lakh, the money generated will be 10 lakh, and this will be your value. So how are volume and value connected to each other? They connected by the price per unit. If I want to find the price per unit, what will I do? I will divide the value by volume. If I want to find the price, I will divide the value by volume, or essentially divide 10 lakh by 10 cars and you will get 1 lakh per car. So the idea is as simple as that. It is commonsensical. If you are an adult who is above 16-18 years of age, you know this concept by just operating in day-to-day lives. 10 toffees for 1 rupee per toffee, you get 10 rupees. I tell you that I got 10 toffees but I spent 20 rupees, you will say 20 divided by 10, price per toffee is 2 rupees. So that very basic relationship. And with this idea, you're good to try out the problem set as such. So find the document below, try it out, and then join the rest of the discussion. So I hope you tried out the sheet or are at least aware of what the basic story is. I'm not going to read out everything. I'll just look at the pie charts and try and first just a little warm up with the information and then dive into the problem solving. So I look at, there are two pie charts, and value market share and volume market share. So take 30 seconds and first of all figure out what this means. That means the first pie chart, which is value market share, it is saying, for example, IBM is 17%. 17% of what? IBM's sale, right, is equal to 17% of what? Of the total sales of the market. So this was the basic step to understand that if I'm talking about the first pie chart and it says IBM is 17%, 17% I know from percentages, 17% of something, of what? Of the total market. Always take a number to try and understand these values, your life will be easier. So imagine the total sales were 100 crores in the market, right? All the companies put together. Somebody sat down and added all the values, right? How much money did IBM make? How much money did Dell make by selling the overall money generated, right? And they finally found out that IBM's money is 17% of the total money, and that information is represented as market share by value. In the second pie chart, I have the same kind of information. IBM again is 14%. But this time we are talking about number of laptops or computers sold. Let me check laptop market. So in the second pie chart, we're talking about how many of the total numbers sold were sold by IBM. So for the second part, IBM, yes, but what are we talking about? Not sale, but numbers. So the numbers of IBM sold was 14% of what? Of the total numbers. And I just saw what is the relationship between numbers and sale. Number into the price per unit will give you the sale. Rewind a little, watch that basic equation again. Numbers, the number of laptops sold, you sold 20 laptops. Each laptop was for 30,000. So 20 into 30,000 will be your sales. And its relationship with the overall sales. So that is the very basic story, just in case somebody was struggling with that. But I'm assuming most people after a minute of reading or two or figuring out, they could have managed or should have managed this, right? Would have managed this. And then if I look at the data carefully, the value is not given. If I say, what is this value? Is it given in the pie chart? So as I ask questions, try and answer them yourself in your own head. Do pause and think about what I'm asking you. Is this value given? Is this value given? I looked at the pie chart and I saw that these values were not given to me, but I shouldn't worry at all, because if there is a question and there is an answer, whatever is needed will be there. So let me patiently now look at the questions, okay? And from those questions we'll learn again. So question number 1, if all the laptop sellers are arranged in increasing order of their average price per laptop sold. So average price per laptop sold, how will I find it? I will find it by dividing the sale by the number. Go back to your previous equation. Price was equal to sales divided by number. As simple as that, right? And what do I mean by average price? Because IBM might have different kinds of laptops. Their prices might change a little bit here and there. But I'm not bothered about the individual prices, but for the brand, what is the overall price or the average price? That means, say if I wanted to find the average price for IBM, I want to find out IBM's average price. How will I find it? I will divide the sale of IBM by the numbers of IBM. So again, stick with the basic idea, and then this is very, very easy stuff, right? So again, imagine if this was 2 crores, right? A total sale of 2 crores was made, and you figure out that you have sold 2,000 laptops. Can you find the price per unit? Hit pause and figure out the price per unit. Now, the reason I'm spending a minute extra is because some people might overthink, and that's a beginner's mistake, to overthink and overcomplicate. And the overcomplication would be start thinking about average price, but it's very, very simple. So that's what I wanted to say. So what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at the question. It said find the average price. So first I'm not thinking of average price of all the brands in my first step, right? What am I thinking of? I took one example. I'm warming up with that one example, and I understand that if I want to find the average price, I can do so by dividing the sale by the total numbers. Once that is in my pocket, now let me look at the question again, right, step by step. It says if the laptop sellers are arranged in increasing order, that means I have to find the average price of others. Be careful about the statement. Do I have to find the average price or do I just have to compare? Because if I now ask, this was an example given by me, right? If I ask you find the actual average price of IBM, can you do that? The answer will be no, because you'll come to this point, but you do not know this value, you do not know this value. So 17 by 14, the 100 will get cancelled of sales by numbers, but that sales by number value is not available to you. So if the question was that what is the average price, your answer would be I do not know with this given data. But luckily the question is not what is the average price. The question is which is higher, which is lower. So just to understand that idea better, I know IBM's average price is this, right? So let me put it up here. Average price for IBM is IBM sale divided by IBM number, which is 17% of sales and numbers. Let me simplify my equation, right? Let me even remove this percentage symbol because that's all I'll be left with, a 17 by 14. Once I'm done with that, I see it is 17 by 14 of S by N. S is the size of the second pie chart, N is the size of the first pie chart. You can also put X or Y or any symbol there. Now I want to look at one more brand. Let me look at Dell. Dell is 15% of value and 18% of numbers. So if I figure out the average price for Dell now, I will say Dell sales divided by Dell numbers. So notice in the beginning I am using long form, but as I progress in the story and I am warmed up, I know I can go for shorter symbols also. So Dell sale is going to be how much? Is going to be 15% of S. I now have symbols for me. The Dell number is going to be how much? 18% of N. Now this S by N and S by N is the same in the story. So it becomes 15 by 18. Instead of S by N, I'll just write a small a, and 17 by 14 of A. A doesn't matter now, just the question is which ratio is higher, because you have to arrange them in terms of increasing order or decreasing order. That means all I have to do is figure out the value of this ratio and figure out the value of this ratio and figure out which is higher, which is lower. And in this case at least, it's going to be very, very easy. 17 by 14, which is greater than 1, is definitely going to be higher than 15 by 18, which is lower than 1. So I know IBM is, the average price for IBM is going to be greater than the average price for Dell. So now what you should do, because I'm not going to solve the whole problem for you, you should stop and forget about the question for a second. I mean, we are driven by the question, but now can I find the average price of all the other brands? Yes, I can, and I can do it fairly quickly. If I look at HP, 12% of sales and 15% of volume. So if I want to find HP sale divided by HP number, and HP sale is 12% of S, I will not even write the 12% anymore because that will get cancelled anyway. And HP number is 15% of N. This is nothing but a small a for me. So if I want to put it in my comparison, once again I have a 12 by 15. Let's compare these two because we're also playing with ratios now. This is 3 5s are 15 and 3 6s are 18, 5 by 6 or 0.83 or 83% if you want to think. This is 4 by 3 4s are 12, 3 5s are 15, 4 by 5, which is 0.8. Which is higher? This is higher. So Dell is higher than HP and IBM was already higher than Dell, right? So I'm just playing with the data now, and I hope you already got the lesson that if somebody asks me what is the price, I cannot find it. But somebody tells me arrange them in increasing decreasing order, that I can do. How can I do that? Because this A or this sale by number is going to be common in finding out all the average prices. So once I have that in my pocket, I'm leaving the arrangement up to you. Please figure out the arrangement and drop the final answer. The second question is very, very interesting, and as you watch the solution, you must appreciate the clarity of ratios required and how again that investment can make your life very, very easy. And pay attention to the solution because it's going to be very, very elegant. So the question number 2 is the average price at which Sony sells its laptops is how much percent more or less than the average price at which Apple sells its laptops. So if I look at the question and if my percentage clarity exists, I notice that this is a question about a percentage relationship about two numbers. Percentage anyway is always about two numbers. So this is asking me which this number is what percent more or less than the other number. We have spent a lot of time mastering that idea, and that investment should pay off now, right? So average price, forget about the again average price again, the relationship between two numbers, and I have understood, should have understood by now, that if I put two numbers in the ratio form, all percentage information will be available to me sooner than later if I know how it works, right? So let me do that. I'm looking at a relationship between two numbers. I'll put one in the numerator and other in the denominator. The average price at which Sony sells its laptops. That means I want to find the average price of Sony, right? How do I find the average price? That I just figured out. Sony is the fourth one. 1, 2, 3, 4. 18%. 18 of S and 1, 2, 3, 4. 11% of N. This is Sony's price. And just keep it on the side, don't worry about it. That means we are looking at the average price of Sony and the average price, what is the challenge comparison? Apple. Average price of Apple. So similarly, let me figure out the average price of Apple. Let me look at Apple data. 21 and 15. I hope you do it with me or by yourself. 21 of sale and 15 of numbers. So okay, a couple of concepts playing out. First of all, I'm figuring out the average price for Sony is this much and the average price for Apple is that much. Now the question is about what percent more or less is the Sony price than the Apple price, right? The language is also important. So what I will do is I'll just put it in the ratio form and then I will arrange the language. So this is going to be 18 by 11 S by N, and this is going to be 21 by 15 S by N. This S by N is going to get cancelled. I can just remove stuff by talking. See how it vanished. And then let me reorganize it, and this will become 11 into 21 and 18 into 15. So let me see if I can simplify this in any form. 3 7s are 21 and 3 5s are 15. Can I do any other jugglery? No. So 18 into 5, 5 10s are 50, 5 8s are 40 is going to be 90. And 11 into 7 is going to be 77. So what I get is 90 by 77. It's important to have. So at this point, it's very, very important to have clarity in terms of what we are doing and what am I talking about. Again, the investment has been done earlier. So I'm saying because that one thing will open up so many other things. So it's worth your time. So the clarity, what I mean by that is now I'm very, very clear that I can get rid of this data as well. And it is, I'm left with the average price of Sony by average price of Apple is 90 by 77. Now I wanted Sony in terms of Apple, so let me just write it like that. Average of Sony, you don't even need to write all of this, is equal to 90 by 77 of Apple. Now all the time we have spent in percentages has been about interpreting this. How do I interpret this in percentage information? So I know 90 by 77 means there is 13, right, extra, 13 by 77 extra, because this can be rewritten as 77 by 77 plus 13 by 77. So 77 by 77 of the Apple price and 13 by 77 of the Apple price is extra. So I have to figure out the value of 13 by 77. And I'm just going to approximate now and leave the actual calculation up to you. One of the privileges of running it. I just look at 77, 10%, what is it going to be? 7.7, basic decimal shifting. So 10% is 7.7, and if I double it, I get around 14 or 15. So 20% I get around 15, and this is 13. So 18 to 20, not 20%, less than 20%. Let me look at my choices and maybe take a chance or figure out the exact value as well. There is a calculator attached in the exam modules as such, right? But stop and recap and understand what I did or how I could have tackled this problem. If my percentage ideas that, okay, whatever is the question, this is what percent more than that. First of all, I looked at it like that, right? This is what more than this, just two numbers. So I said, okay, whenever I want a percentage relationship, if I have the ratio, I can always create a multiplying factor and figure out the story. All of this is like has a season 1, right? Because this is like episode number 57 in the Game of Thrones journey, and you're like, what is this king doing here? And there is a backstory to it, right? So once you figure that out, then you will also realize that the same effort investment you have put there is paying off, and it can create speed as well. So recap, because you've also learned it in profit, loss and discount. If you want a relationship, go for the ratio, and then I worked piece by piece. I worked for the average price of Sony, I know clearly. Average price of Apple, I know clearly. Now let me bring in these pieces to my other story. So that sequential step taking as well will be an important part of this. Okay, with that we have actually covered, gone through the difficulty hump as such. Now we can run through questions much faster, because by now I will assume everything else before this is definitely clear, or you would have left by now. So question number 4, as compared to Acer, how many of the other 6 laptop sellers sell more number of laptops at an average price that is higher than the average price of Acer? So once again, long story, you might have to read it a couple of times. That's basic challenges. Average price of Acer, let me figure that out. That is the easiest step possible. Acer is the last one. Is going to be 8 of sale. I'm not even writing the percentage information anymore. And 11 of number. So this is the average price of Acer. Now let me look at the question again, because now my brain is warmed up. And the question says, as compared to Acer's average price, how many of them are selling at a higher average price, as well as selling more number of laptops than Acer? The number of laptops by Acer are available, or the overall numbers are available in the second pie chart. So if I look at Acer, it is 11%. There is only one which is lower or equal to that, which is another 11% by the fourth player, which is Sony. Look at your pie chart data, follow the story. Acer is at 11% in numbers. We have in the question said how many of them are selling higher numbers than Acer. So the other 11% is not higher than Acer, so I can ignore that information. So I can remove Sony as a contender. But I will have to look at the average price of all the other players. So let's do that very, very quickly. The first one is IBM, and it is going to be 17 by 14. This time I'm not even going to write this S by N, because finally my task is just this. This is definitely higher than the Acer price, because this is more than 1, this is less than 1. I can do a very basic calculation and move on. So IBM, that means so far if I count, I have 1. Then I look at Dell, and for the Dell the same information is 15 by 18. Now 15 by 18 is 5 by 6 or 0.83 or 83%, and 8 by 11, 1 by 11 is 9.09. 8 by 11 is going to be 8 into 9.09 or 72.72. So this is 0.72 if you want the actual number reference, and this is 0.83. So this is also going to be higher. So you have one more company which is higher in average price and is also selling more than Acer, because it's 18% of the volume market. Look at the third one, HP. HP is 12 by 15. We figured this out earlier also. So if you kept that data, your life would be even easier than mine, because I haven't kept that data. So 4 by 5, which is 0.8, not higher than the average price of, this was the average price that we're comparing. So even this is higher, ignore my mistake, and you have one more company. The next one, which is Sony, 11%, I did not have to consider, because it is not selling more than the number of laptops. Then the next one is Apple again, and Apple is this time 21 by 15. 21 by 15 is definitely higher because it's more than 1, this is less than 1. So one more, and you have one more company which has a higher average price and is selling more. So I'm thinking I have done enough work. I'll leave the rest up to you because sometimes I forget and I just continue to do everything. I'm sure you can figure out the rest of the story. And notice is the same thing again. Average price is value divided by volume. Money divided by number is a simple term, right? Question number 5 should be very, very easy. If the average market price of the laptop is 54,000, find the average price of HP laptop. We already figured out the average price of HP laptops in terms of the symbols available. It was 12% or 12 of S divided by how much is the SP? 15 of N, sales by volume. But this time the question also tells me that the average price of the market, the whole laptop industry, is 54,000. So that means this value is 54,000. So my question becomes 12 by 15 of 54,000. What is that going to be? That also tells me that the average price of HP or whatever brand we are looking at is lower than the market price. Question number 6 is almost identical. Let me play with it right now. How many sellers have their average price of a laptop more than the average price of more than the average market price of the laptop? Do not consider this data because the question has not said that the previous data is useful to you right now. This is an independent question, but the average price of the market is still S by N. Now the question is whether 12 by 15, for example, is 4 by 5 of S by N. 0.8 of S by N, which is less than S by N. If you multiply a number by 1, you get the same number. If you multiply a number with something which is greater than 1, you will get a higher or a bigger number. If you multiply a number to another number which is less than 1, your overall first number will become smaller, right? So all you had to do was figure out whether this ratio for all the brands, whether it is greater than 1 or less than 1, you wanted those companies which is less than 1. So by now it should be very easy. Just run your eyes through, just look at the ratio, and all you have to do is check whether it's less than 1 or more than 1, and then drop your answers in the comment section. Okay, so question number 7 and question number 8 I'm leaving up to you. The solutions are available in the document itself, but the idea being that the questions are now repeating. So how to deal with question number 7 and how to deal with question number 8, a very elegant, useful, simplified technique was shared earlier, very similar to questions that have happened earlier. So I'm assuming you'll be able to do it on your own anyway. I'm sure even this most people figured out. Just a quick revision of the importance of ratios, ratio all over again, and the investments in that percentage fraction conversion will all pay off over and over again as you move along in the DI journey. Plus you're basically developing number literacy, right? You're doing this so many times that a lot of these will get imprinted in your mind, and that will provide additional speed. So I'm going to stop for this particular session, and that's it for the day. I will see you really soon with the next challenge. My name is Ankur Suryavanshi. The link for my courses can be found below in the description box. I've been told to smile a little more, so I'll smile also. Okay, so that's it for the day. I'll see you soon.